I'm Jenny Plum. My stroke was 6 years ago when I was 34. That's a huge question, huge question. I was a relatively new parent at the time. My daughter was 20 months old. So initially for me, it was about being a mother and how I was not going to be the parent that I thought I was going to be. I was very much used to being in control, planning, kind of action woman, lots of outdoors activities and child carrier and all sorts of stuff. And overnight, all that was taken away. So there was a lot of frustration, and I felt very betrayed by my body. I have to say that things have improved a lot recently. I say I'm 6 years down the line now, and I'm doing a hell of a lot more now than I ever thought imaginable, even kind of 3 or 4 years ago. I was told initially that your progress kind of has a steep increase and then plateaus. I have to say that's not been my experience, and actually I'm still now 6 years on noticing improvements. For my 5-year anniversary, I got myself a bike, and I am now able to go on bike rides with my children. It was a bit of an awakening. I've always been someone who does a lot for other people, and having this happen to me helped me reevaluate the people and the things that are important, and showed the people who actually genuinely had the time and the space to embrace the new Jenny, as opposed to the old Jenny who was a bit of a kind of fix-all, kind of get stuck in. And the people that have continued on that journey with me are the ones that will be with me for life. And it's actually been quite a useful exercise, because I hadn't realised how draining some people could be. Again, that's a big question because it's so personal. For me, it was about my identity, the vision I had of parenting. And I think it's partly, as much as it's kind of difficult, ask for help, take the help, use every resource you can, whether it's from the voluntary sector, whether it's friends and family. I used Home Start for the best part of a year. I had a volunteer. Be selfish, and when you need to rest, rest, because I've done it myself, where I've been in boom and bust cycles. I've pushed through, and it's to my own detriment, and it's really, really difficult balance when you've got a 24/7 demands of children. One of the difficult decisions I made was to put my daughter into full-time education as soon as possible. I felt incredibly guilty about that, but actually it's one of the best things I could have done for our family. So sometimes it might feel uncomfortable, but actually it's the right thing. So my eldest is now 8, but she was 20 months old at the time. To have my second was a bit of a battle, because that was post-stroke. And there was lots of misinformation, actually, about the medication that I was prescribed at the time, and pregnancy and safety around having a second child. And what I would say is question everything and seek multiple opinions. Don't necessarily take the first medical practitioner that you speak to's word for what's possible. I had a pack which included some books. I had a recommendation for another book which I think was through the Facebook group, which was, I think it was My Mum Makes the Best Cakes. And that was a really helpful book for my child when she was quite young. I predominantly used the Facebook group because I found that the support I'd had previously was around elderly care, and it was really refreshing and very reassuring to speak to people who were of working age with young children, and to talk about some of the symptoms and things that you wouldn't necessarily want to talk to a consultant about because they're just kind of off the cuff So I think the instant reassurance from other survivors is really helpful. Individual, very much individual, and it's really hard not to compare yourself to others. It's easy to say, keep fighting, keep pushing, but it's not always easy to do that, and I think you just need to give yourself a bit of a break, and the acceptance that it's lifelong, a life-changing condition, is very difficult, and to be kind on yourself. On that as well, it being a hidden disability, I professionally and socially present as Jenny Plum, and there's a lot going on internally that's not always out there, and it's not ignoring that inside voice as well. I did not have any fast symptoms. In fact, I was diagnosed with an ear infection initially. Sinus infection, ear infection. I had extreme vertigo. I was hugging the floor, vomiting, worse than any hangover, anything you've ever seen in your life. And when I spoke to medical people, the thought that I'd even had a stroke didn't enter anybody's minds. It was eventually after a few days where I got my partner to take me into A&E because I'd spoken to the doctor several times and I was antibiotics. I went to the hospital and they shone a torch in my eyes, and on all accounts my eyes were doing funny things. I had a CT scan and they said, you're going to a stroke unit. And my initial response was, how long for? I've got to pick up my daughter in an hour. And they said, you know, at least a week, and it turned into 3 weeks. For me, it's primarily cognitive fatigue. I do have a slight right side weakness, but I've worked really hard on that in the last few years, and that's improved massively. It's a real use it or lose it. During lockdown, I lost a lot of strength and stamina, which has then taken time to rebuild. But for me, it's, though I've returned to work, I work part-time. I could push to work full-time, but then I wouldn't be able to parent. And I have to have really strict boundaries professionally and personally about what I will take on. When I'm fatigued, I can't look after myself, and I don't always notice when I'm starting to go down that route. I think finding the right group has helped. I initially joined a local stroke group, and I was the youngest by several decades, and I found myself almost caring for the other stroke survivors as opposed to being recognised as a survivor myself. Not by the people running it, but because I was physically able, I would default to making the tea. Whereas with the kind of the social media side of different strokes, for example, reading other stories and, you know, even talking over the phone to other kind of parents and things, it is a really useful resource, really reassuring. Inspiring, I think, because it's not a, yes, people do go online and they will share their bad days, and it's a safe space to do that, but also there's a lot of hope and joy and success that's a space to celebrate. There's lots. I think for me, it was challenging the medication I was on and the professionals that I was seeing and pushing back to enable me to have a second child. Not necessarily a single book or song, but an app. So I've used Insight Timer, which is a meditation app, and initially I spent the first year pretty much asleep, a lot, but I found it really hard to switch off, and I found that using a meditation app to help me switch off from the world was really beneficial, and I would use it several times a day just to go and get some respite. Without trying to sound corny, you don't know what's around the corner. I needed to slow down. I know I needed to slow down. I was taking on too much, spreading myself too thinly, and not looking after my own self-care. So one of the things that this has taught me massively is that for me to be the best that I can for my children, I really do need to look after myself.
We're Different Strokes, a charity supporting working age and younger stroke survivors across the UK. Don't forget to like and give us a follow to see more videos like this.